Here we go, let's go. Thank you, San Diego, Oceanside. Isn't this a beautiful day? It's wonderful, and thanks so much for inviting me here, Kathy. I'm so excited to be here and talk about one of my favorite subjects in the whole wide world, Title IX in women's athletics. I want to go back a little bit in history. I was raised on a farm in Missouri, the oldest of 4 girls, and I always loved sports. When I was 6 years old, my dad had enough confidence in me, he threw me on a tractor and said, go drive it, and I did. Then when I was 13, he bought a motor scooter and said, drive it home on the freeway, and I did. And so I grew up in a family where there were really no roles. 4 girls, my dad cleaned house, he cooked, my mom drove the tractor, milked cows. And you can't imagine my shock when I went to when I went to high school, and they said, women are the inferior sex. I go, what? I can't buy that. And so from that moment on, I realized that life is going to be a little bit of struggle for women. My first job, well, actually, when I went to college, I threw the softball really well, threw it a long ways. And so when I was in college, they said, since you throw so well, why don't you throw the discus and javelin at the state track meet? And I said, oh, okay, what are they? I'd never seen a discus and javelin before. And they go, oh, we'll show you what they look like. And I said, well, who's gonna help me? I mean, I need some help to know how to do this. And they go, oh, none of us know how to do it, but here's a book. And so, oh, by the way, the track meet's in 3 days. So I went to the track meet, and just to tell you how bad things were, I placed 3rd in all 3 events. That's how terrible it was. So then I go back home, and I told my mom and dad, I said, you know, I really love these events. I really want to see if I can do better. And so every book I read says, you really must lift weights. And I'm going, oh, okay, the men have weights, I'll go check with them. So I go over to the men's track coach and say, it says I really must lift weights, and I'm sure you agree with that. And he goes, oh yeah, you have to lift weights. And I said, well, when can I get in the weight room? And he says, what? You can't get in the weight room? And I'm going, why not? What's the men's weight room? And I go, oh, well, can I come late at night or early in the morning? No, you can't go in the weight room. So I'm thinking, you know, this isn't quite fair, I don't think. There's something wrong with this picture. So then I go home and tell my mom and dad that, and bless their hearts, they go get me weights, they go get me a discus and a javelin. I work all year teaching myself how to do these events, go back the next year to the track meet, and guess what? Number 1 in all events. So then I'm driving back to home from the track meet, and I'm going, my God, now what? I mean, you worked all year, there's nothing else to do. I mean, why did you do this? And so, as luck would happen, I got home, and I had met some people when I was in college. I got this phone call, and this woman said, say, I know, I just met a woman, Margaret Elson. She's with the Texas women's track team, and it's an all-girl team. And they need a thrower. They need a weight events person. And here's her phone number. So I go, oh, okay. I called her up, and she said, how soon can you be here? We got a track meet this weekend. I said, I'm on my way. And so I went to Texas, and it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. If I had not had that experience, I probably would have spent my entire life in Missouri. It gave me an opportunity to get out of Missouri and to go to school and to learn what athletics was really about. So my first teaching job was at Colorado State University. Now, I'm going to give you a little history here. In those years, the physical education program was in charge of women's athletics or women's sports. And of course, the men's athletic program was in athletics. So anyway, I got my first job, and I have to be an instructor because they hired me for my coaching ability in track and field, but I couldn't do that. They couldn't put coach on my contract. It had to be instructor. So I get there and I know I'm coaching track and field. First day I'm there, I check in and I said, I'm all ready to go. And the chair of the department says, oh, by the way, this law, Title IX, is passed, and we have to have somebody that is women's athletic director. And it's going to be you. I'm going, what? Me? I said, how come? He said, because no one else would take it. And it doesn't pay anything more, extra. I'm going, oh my. So anyway, here I am, women's athletic director. Green behind the gills. I mean, I'm just out of graduate school. So I call them, I guess I figured I was supposed to call a meeting of all coaches and see what's going on. So I get all the coaches together. We'd start talking about how much money do they have for this program of women's athletics. $5,500. And they said, oh, by the way, the men have several million. And I'm going, uh-oh, this doesn't seem right. And of course, the women were competing in the same conference that the men competed in. And they had 11 sports, going to 7 states. They had to pay their own food. Only thing the university would provide was travel. If we had to stay overnight, they had to pay for their own room, or 12 or 13 stayed in a room together. So as I started down this program, first thing I did is, after we got the realistic budget, $40,000, still several million, we got the realistic budget, I take it to the physical education department because that was my superiors. And so I take it to the physical education department and they look at it and they start laughing and they go, you gotta be kidding me. You're not gonna fund that much this program. And $5,500 is all you're gonna get, and that's what you have. I said, do you mind if I present this to the president? Oh no, go take it to him. So next day, in the office of the president, and I'm telling you, you don't understand. I was a green kid. But anyway, I go into the president and I present him the budget, and he goes, I've been trying to get a budget out of that physical education department for women's sports forever, and they never gave me one. Well, you can imagine what happened when that hit the newspapers. Not good, because the physical education department thought they were doing everything and it made them look bad. So, but anyway, the president said he wanted to put together an ad hoc committee that was going to look at the budget and see what they thought. Well, they came up with $100,000. I mean, I was ecstatic. My gosh, $100,000. But the president said, first, we're going to start easy, and since your budget was $40,000, you get the $40,000. So here we go. Now, right after this happened in the budget, and the president agreed that we should get $40,000, guess what? I'm evaluated. It's not my time to be evaluated, but I'm evaluated. And of course, the recommendation was that I had not completed a PhD, which I had never agreed I was going to complete, and I was not recommended to be rehired. So I'm going, wow. And the first step of appeal is you go right back to the same committee that didn't recommend you in the first place. And so I'm going back to this committee that didn't recommend me, and obviously didn't want me there, and you have to go by yourself. You can't have anyone to go with you. You can't have a friend, you can't have an attorney. They don't do that. Thank God the laws have changed on that. So I go back to this committee, and of course the recommendation is saying not recommended for rehire. Well, the next process was the Faculty Improvement Committee. So one more time, I go before this group of faculty members, I present my case, and for 2 days, and guess what? They reinstated me. How's that? All right. And so I'm reinstated. But the problem is, those people that fired me, wanted me fired, they were still my bosses. So that wasn't good. Wasn't good at all. So that year, I was able to recruit 2 Olympians, and we had 36 track meets, 12 cross country, 12 indoor, and 12 outdoor meets. and we placed second in the nation in cross country. We've established many American records in the indoor season, and second in the outdoor season at the nationals, and plus several of the athletes won first and second place. So by this time, it was in the 70s. I have to emphasize that because there was a women's caucus group on campus, and those women really rallied around me. The students rallied around me. I mean, it was in the newspapers all the time. Some of the majors in the physical education department had a meeting with the chair of physical education and wanted to know why they fired me. They couldn't understand it. Well, I'm fired again, this is the second time. And they couldn't understand why I was being fired. And again, the chair of the physical education department said that I was being fired because I did not get my PhD. And I was not a competent instructor. And they said, she was voted outstanding prof last year. What do you mean she's not a competent instructor? Well, so anyway, again, I'm appealing, and again, I'm appealing by myself. This time, when it went to an arbitrator, I was able to bring in an attorney, which cost about $12,000. And again, I'm reinstated. So all this time, the harassment was unbelievable. I had somebody sitting in my class every day, sitting there writing notes, and you never know what they're writing about. But there was just so much hostility and so much harassment. And then when January of that year came around, again, I was given a letter and I was fired again. But this time, they had gotten an attorney, and it was a pretty ironclad contract. And I went ahead and signed it. I only had 12 hours, but I went ahead and signed it because I thought, okay, he'll give me a year, and maybe I can get a job somewhere else. So after the end of that year, I was gone, no job. I was out of work for a year, probably sent out something like 40 or 50 resumes, no job interviews. Finally, I get a request to come to San Diego State University for a job interview. Well, I go to San Diego State for this job interview, and of course, driving down Balboa Park, I'm going, oh my God, here's this girl from Missouri. This is beautiful. And I go through the interview process and wait and wait and wait. I probably waited about 3 or 4 weeks. And I'm at home in Missouri with my mom, and the phone rings, and it was somebody from San Diego State that offered me the job. And I said, I'll take it. I didn't ask what the title was, I didn't ask what the pay was, I didn't ask anything. I just took the job, and I turned around and told my mom I had the job, and she goes, oh, it's wonderful, this one. And she started crying, and she goes, but I never wanted to be so far away. So then at San Diego State, I started out as Associate Director of Women's Athletics and Track and Field Coach. And Ken Carr was the athletic director then, and Ken would meet with all the men in athletics, and then he'd meet with me. But after about the second time, I said, this is really foolish. Why don't we just all meet together? Because I really want to learn about men's athletics. And he says, that's great. He said, because it'll be one less meeting for me. And so right off the bat, I started meeting with the entire men's staff. And the very first game we were staging at that time was Miami. 60,000 people. The biggest event I'd ever staged was 200. I mean, so talk about learning. And he really mentored me and brought me into marketing, fundraising, all the aspects of men's athletics. And this was in 1976, and he was my savior as far as I was concerned. Well, guess what? He got fired. So when he got fired in 78, we had a new president at that point in time, and the president calls me in and he says, I think you're really ready to be the athletic director, but I just don't think the community will handle that. And so I'm going to hire somebody else. Well, he hired somebody else. That somebody else was there 3 months, and then he left. So then the president calls me in again, and he says, okay, we're going to do this. And so I really thought we were going to do this in 78. But so much so, I flew to San Francisco and met with somebody that I knew really well because I needed a an assistant athletic director that I could trust. And sometimes those are hard to find. But anyway, at the last minute, when I went over to talk to the president thinking I was going to be the athletic director, he says, oh no, he said, I hired somebody else. But you're going to be the associate for men and women. He says, because I want you in the community, I want you to know what the community to see you, I want the community to understand you. And he said, this will be a great opportunity for you to get that experience. So now I'm associate director for men and women. Any more pay? No, forget the pay. And so this goes on. And by the way, at that time, I was the first associate director for men and women in the United States as well. At that time, I'm busting my butt doing everything. We're going through a lot of different programs in the NCAA. I had introduced a substance abuse program at San Diego State for athletes. Oh, I only have 1 minute. Well, I have to wrap this up quick. Sorry. But I was going to say the program went from, on 5 years, they lost $2 million. We were running a $750,000 deficit. The budget hadn't been balanced in 5 years. I turned that all around. I balanced the budget and increased fundraising. And so, but the one thing I want to end with is we need an advocacy program for women. When I was at Colorado State, the women really rallied around me. At San Diego State, they didn't. And I see that happening today. There is a real loss and a disconnect for women reaching out to help women up. And I would really like to have any advice or any help that any of you have along those lines, because we really need to do that. And I want to end with one more thing. I want to end with a Native American saying, and that is, dreams are like wild horses. They must run free. And you must know, follow your dream. You've got to have that dream, you've got to have that vision, and you can make it happen. Thank you.